yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
The show is in honor of, it's a show that's dedicated to veterans, active members of the service, and the general public. And today we have a very special panel that's going to discuss something that they very recently did that I think the public is really going to enjoy seeing and talking about. Okay, I'd like to introduce my very special panel that's here today. Dennis McLoone. Dennis, welcome.
Thank you, Ed.
Chip McLean, thank you very much. Al Porto, thank you for being here. And Paul Dietrich. Paul has been the backbone of getting this show done. He comes up with projects and things that we can do and show the public that help veterans in so many different ways. Today we're going to help the patriotic of the veteran. And in order to start that off, before we go to Paul, who's going to pretty much monitor the show, or Chip McLean, I'd like you to explain how you became involved with this project and what it means to you.
Thank you, Ed. First of all, I'm very happy to be here with all of you gentlemen for this show. And I'd just like to say that I'm representing the Knights of Columbus Governor Dongan Assembly. On Staten Island, as many of your viewers may know, the Knights of Columbus is a fraternal Catholic organization for men, and there's 11 councils on Staten Island. Many of the Knights choose to go on to become a fourth degree knight, to full knighthood. The motto of the fourth degree is patriotism. So everything we do in the assembly, in the Governor Dongan Assembly, is towards patriotism. And one of the efforts that we chose to partake and undertake was honoring the veterans by going to Arlington National Cemetery and participate in the Wreaths Across America program. And the Wreaths Across America program is it's a not-for-profit organization that spends their time throughout the year to raise money and all of the logistics to place wreaths on the graves of veterans in the various veterans cemeteries throughout the United States. So the Governor Dongan Assembly chose to sponsor a pilgrimage, a bus trip down to Arlington. We raised the funds throughout the year to pay for the bus. Members of the Knights of Columbus were invited to go, and we also extended a warm welcome to the veterans community. And a number of the veterans participated with us that day when we went to Arlington. We were very pleased to see that and to have them with us, and they definitely enhanced the group and the trip. So we left Staten Island in the wee hours of the morning, 5:30 a.m., and we headed down to Washington, and the roads were dry this year, and traffic was light, and we made it down there just before 10 o'clock, around 10 o'clock. And we left the bus, and we marched into Arlington Cemetery with tens of thousands of other people from all over the United States.
Yep. It was over 40,000 people distributing wreaths that day.
Yeah, and for the purpose of placing the wreaths and honoring our veterans.
Yes.
That was a great thing, and the Knights of Columbus financed the whole bill. Am I correct?
Yes. As I said, members of the Governor Dongan Assembly, with the assistance of the other councils on Staten Island, we raised funds throughout the year to pay for the bus. It was the cost of the bus and any miscellaneous expenses.
Chip, from my heart, and the other gentlemen on the panel as well, what the Knights of Columbus have done for veterans, but by endeavoring to go down to Arlington is a wonderful thing. And the fact that you financed it for us, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank the Knights of Columbus enough for what they've done. And it's very much appreciated. Oh.
It was our honor.
Yep. Thank you. Paul, I'm going to ask you to kind of take over the reins right now because you were on the trip.
Yes,
unfortunately, I was not there. But
you were busy that day.
Yeah.
Medically.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. But Paul, the floor is yours.
Well, we did have to leave very early in the morning in order to get down there in time. And the offer was extended to all of the Veterans of Foreign War members and the American Legion members in Staten Island. And we had a pretty good representation there. And again, we went a little bit beyond that because last year we were involved in the Veterans of Foreign War and the American Legion with the presentation of an actual award to a fellow that's buried here on Staten Island of the Medal of Honor, and that was a Sergeant Shemin, and he's buried right up here on Staten Island on Richmond Avenue. Again, World War I veteran, and his award was initially the Distinguished Service Cross and recently upgraded to the Medal of Honor. Along with him, there was a second award at the same time, done at the same time, and that was a Sergeant Johnson. And Sergeant Johnson was a black sergeant who served in the 369th. And Sergeant Johnson doesn't have any family, so the Shemin family basically adopted him. And we knew that Sergeant Johnson was buried at Arlington. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did, since there's no family of Sergeant Johnson existing, we wanted to make sure that we visited his gravesite in particular to make sure that there was a wreath there. So that's one of the reasons why we went to a specific section and made that little bit of extra effort to get it to Sergeant Johnson's gravesite. And then we can go into the actual film, I think, unless somebody has something else that they'd like to say. But
sure. Why don't we go and see the video?
So here we are a couple of hours into the trip. We're stopped at the Maryland House on the way down. Coffee was absolutely essential at this hour in the morning.
Right. And it was cold.
Oh, yes.
It was definitely
And as
cold.
you can see, the sun has come up.
Yes.
What a handsome couple.
That was Dennis's wife, Mary LaManna, that was there.
I gotta kill you, Ed. Now, also with us that day was the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 421 members. And
you'll see here that this is where we had to stop. The traffic was totally backed up, and we had to stop the bus along the highway in Washington, D.C., and walk from there to the actual cemetery.
About 2 miles.
No.
1.9 miles. All right, maybe I'm exaggerating.
Here you see some of the crowd that were involved in the actual placing of the wreaths. There were over 40,000 citizens of the country there distributing wreaths, again, all provided by Wreaths of America. We were just one portion of this.
And these people were basically leaving to go home. They had been there several hours.
Here we are coming up to the entrance. This is about where we lost our cameraman. Unfortunately, we didn't know that the security was going to be as tight as it was, and the cameraman needed an escort through the entire ceremony. So we lost him for a little bit of time. This is the actual map of the cemetery. We were able to find Sergeant Johnson's gravesite through that.
And there's over 400,000 graves at Arlington National Cemetery. A lot of walking. We did a lot of walking just to get to the section where Sergeant Johnson was buried.
Here you can actually see some of the volunteers placing the wreaths.
By the time we got there, actually, most of the graves had already been decorated.
Yes. Right. Section 25 is where Sergeant Johnson is actually buried.
You said that's the New York section.
We did have a little difficulty in finding his individual grave. We knew the number, but the numbering system...
We're here to recognize Sergeant Henry Johnson, U.S. Army, 369th Infantry, Medal of Honor recipient, who finally received his just recognition for his outstanding heroism on the field of battle. And we're here to lay a wreath in commemoration of his service and life.
Amen.
Amen.
The folks that are watching the show have to remember that back in World War I time, if you were a black soldier or a Jewish soldier, there was a lot of segregation and what have you going on.
God rest in peace. Amen.
The same thing with Sergeant Johnson, who was a black soldier. And I noted on the gravesite that Sergeant Johnson had died July 1st, 1929.
Yes.
So he must have been suffering some of the effects of being in World War I.
Quite a lot of walking, as you can see, just from the numbers of graves.
And it seemed to be all uphill all the time.
Even when we were coming downhill, it seemed to be uphill. Some of the graves you can see on the back, the wife's name.
Right.
The wife is buried with the husband, or vice versa.
Right. And in fact, Mary, we were finally able to place a wreath. We actually placed a wreath on the grave of George Brennan and his wife, who was a World War II yeoman, and their son, Michael Brennan, who was a specialist in the Army.
After we placed the wreath at Sergeant Johnson's gravesite, we marched up the hill, and you're right, it was uphill. And here we are coming up the hill, and we're going to the tomb of the unknown soldier. And there were some ceremonies at that point, including some wreath laying and a changing of the guard. If you have never seen the changing of the guard ceremony, it is quite impressive.
Absolutely. And actually, the last time Mary and I were at Arlington Cemetary to see the changing of the guard was probably in 1995. And it was just as impressive now as it was then.
I think we were also talking before about how recently the Vietnam veteran was identified using DNA.
That's correct.
And his remains have now been removed from the unknown and back to his family.
He was a pilot, and his name was Blassie. And since that time frame, they determined that there will never ever be another Vietnam veteran unknown because of the advanced DNA identification system.
I would ask that the public that's viewing this look at the honor and the silence and respect that are shown.
And Paul, it's not just ceremonial. The tomb guards actually enforce that silence and respect rule.
Where do the tomb guards come from?
Well, they come from a unit that is the 1st Battalion, 3rd Infantry Regiment, reinforced. The oldest active infantry unit in the Army, activated just after the Revolutionary War as the 1st American Regiment. They have the unique distinction of one of the only units in the Army to be authorized to pass and review with fixed bayonets.
See the guy on the roof. The old guard.
Yes. And their tour of duty is in 1 hour at a time, regardless of the weather.
Regardless of the weather.
There's the sergeant of the guard approaching the incumbent guard.
And each time they do it for 21 seconds. They march for 21 steps in honor of the 21-gun salute.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
I am Staff Sergeant Calderon of the 3rd Infantry Regiment, United States Army. Guard of Honor, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The ceremony that you are about to witness is the changing of the guard. In keeping with the dignity of this ceremony, it is requested that everyone remain silent and standing. Thank you.
They wanted to make that clear that nobody will be kneeling at this ceremony.
Al, can you describe what the sergeant is doing at this point?
He's conducting an inspection of the oncoming guard. Uniform, weapon, all details. Excruciating attention to detail.
And they must be first rate all the time, because
Yes.
of all the times that I've seen the changing of the guard, I've never seen anyone taken out of their position.
Well, they're given a preliminary inspection in the guard room, which is downstairs underneath the tomb area, before they even get upstairs.
Forward! March!
I noticed that they actually hesitated after the command forward march, a nanosecond before they stepped off.
Forward! Halt! Guard! Halt! 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 Ready! Fight! Present! Halt! 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 Ready! Fight! Pass! On your orders! Hold! And order! Remain as directed! Order! Acknowledge! Ready! Fight! Present! Halt! Right shoulder up. Hold.
Al, do you know what type of rifles they're using?
That's the M14 that they use. M16s are not very conducive to drill-in ceremonies.
No.
But it's the last traditional type of wooden stock rifle.
Forward. Up.
Now he'll be inspecting that weapon.
Cleared the weapon.
Yeah.
The placing of a wreath. of which they did many that day.
Yes. Yes.
You see the wreath bearer and the trumpeter.
Who was from a different unit. That's, they believe, the Army Band, Pershing Zone.
And you saw that they saluted as they passed the tomb.
As you said, there was a number of wreaths that were placed that day, but this particular wreath is being placed by the organization that sponsored
Across America.
Wreaths
Right?
Across America. And I think Dennis has some information on
Right.
the gentleman that's going to be participating with some children.
I would ask for silence with the panel once taps begins.
As that's the normal thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The ceremony that you are about to witness is an Army wreath-laying ceremony to be conducted by Wreaths Across America. It is requested that everyone remain silent and steady during this ceremony. All military personnel in uniform will render the hand salute, and it is appropriate for all others to place their right hand over their heart upon the command of present arms. Thank you.
You notice some youngsters and the gentleman in the
Orange hat.
orange toque.
I think you got one.
Fellow in the orange hat is the Medal of Honor recipient presenting the
You took my line away from me.
Sorry.
There's no speaker or battery in that trumpet. There's the Medal of Honor recipient. I suspect a Korean War veteran.
Dennis, also, if, you know, a lot of people are interested in, like, they ask, well, a Medal of Honor, what did the soldier, sailor, Marine do to receive the Medal of Honor? Well,
That's the highest medal.
Right, but there is a website, the Center for Military History, and there's a drop-down menu, and they'll have they list. No, they have the narratives ever since the Civil War of every Medal of Honor recipient of what the action for what they were awarded.
The citation.
Like again, Sergeant Shemin and Sergeant Johnson, they will have their narrative exactly what they did that
Excellent.
that authorized their being awarded the Medal of Honor.
As we have on Staten Island, we have Father Capodanno, who was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions September 4th, 1967. Joe Merrill, April 18th, 1945. Joe was only a 18-year-old young fella, and during that battle saved many of his friends. So he died and they lived. And of course, there's a Benfield. I think he was I'm not sure if he was a hospital corpsman, but from the Korean War, he also received the Medal of Honor. And we have a great military history from our veterans that served in the wars from Staten Island.
Well, Ed, as we said earlier in the show, you know, the 4th degree of the Knights of Columbus is the patriotic degree. And another one of the patriotic endeavors that we partake in during the year is we have a ceremony, a memorial ceremony every year at the grave of Father Capodanno's grave in St. Peter's Cemetery,
Right,
where we place a wreath.
very impressive
prayers,
ceremony, yes.
And we remember him and the service that he rendered to God and country.
Right.
Well, the other point that we were talking about before, Chip, was that we hope that you will do similar events in the future. And again, one of the ways that we could all get involved with that, if somebody's out there, a veteran who wants to get involved with that, is get involved with the veterans groups. These are the types of things that we do to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice.
Right. Yeah, we served our country, now we serve our community, so
Yes.
this is one of the efforts that you can do.
And we would very much want to do this again next year or similar.
We'll endeavor to keep the veterans community in our forefront and of our minds, as always. And as I said, we do a number of other things throughout the year to honor our veterans and to participate. And we stand ready to serve if you have any particular needs within the community, to contact the Governor Dongan Assembly, 4th degree Knights of Columbus, and we would be more than happy to continue to support the community, the veterans community.
Yeah, it was a nice trip. It was a long trip.
Oh, yeah.
It was a cold trip.
A lot of time in the saddle.
Yeah.
And a lot of walking.
And we were rewarded.
Let's start with Paul. What impact did this day mean to you, just the one day that you went down there?
I think to me the big thing was remembering somebody who, through their actions, was given the Medal of Honor. Here was an opportunity for us to remember somebody from New York. Has no family.
That was very true.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing, that so many people took part in this.
Yes.
The Shemin family for actually basically adopting Sergeant Johnson because he had no family. When he received the Medal of Honor by President Obama in the White House, there was no family there to honor him. And the Shemin family felt that was such a terrible thing that they adopted him and will always remember him. And they have a monument of their loved one, William Shemin, at Barrenhurst Cemetery. And on that monument is also Sergeant Johnson. So the two of them will be remembered as long as people visit the cemetery.
No, they served in different wars?
No, both World War I.
Both
But they
World
did
War
not
I,
serve together.
No.
No.
No, they didn't serve together, no.
No.
Well, back in those days, they couldn't serve together.
No, it was a
Sergeant
segregated
Johnson
army.
was-
The African Americans were segregated
Right.
in those days, which was
And that's one of the reasons why Sergeant Johnson did not receive the medal back at that time,
right.
because of the segregation, and the same thing for Sergeant Shemin. He was a Jewish soldier, and there was
Well,
that part of
okay.
also was a problem.
Right. Al, what impact did it have on you being there? And I should point out first that both Al and everyone here has served, in combat, and
Vietnam War.
Vietnam,
Korea.
Korea and Iraq.
All right. So you've seen the worst of it. So anyway, Al, your impact.
I've never been to, that was the first time I've been to Arlington, and when I offered the chance, I jumped at it, and but it's quite extremely impressive, and I was kind of like speechless. That's why, that's the only thing how I could describe it.
Yeah.
The reverence of that area.
Exactly.
It makes you just stand there in awe.
Unfortunately, I was not there, as we discussed earlier, but I'm one of those guys, every time I hear taps, the back ears of my hair come up and you get choked up, when you hear. And I would imagine being down there, I would have probably been at some point or another in tears, because it just has that impact on you. Now, Chip, you were talking about the Kennedy. You went to the Kennedy monument. How was your?
That was part of the day's activities, was to participate in placing the wreaths at the graves, and then part of the trip was that we would pay a visit to the Tomb of the Unknown, and then also we added, because of the proximity, the John F. Kennedy grave, which was actually on our way back to the bus. So how could we walk past and not honor a past president who was, John Kennedy was a member of the Knights of Columbus, also World War II veteran, a Navy veteran. And so we were happy to stop there, and we were very honored to stop there and add that visit to the day. But the day overall was completely overwhelming, aside from the early start and the many miles in the saddle. But and also my pedometer registered just under 9 miles the day we walked from the bus into the cemetery, through our duties, past the Tomb of the Unknown and the Kennedy grave.
A lot of walking.
Just under 9 miles. So it was a good day, good exercise day, and it was a brilliant day. But it was emotionally overwhelming, because when we got there, thousands upon thousands of people, families, kids, children who didn't know what, I don't know if they would know what a veteran meant or what it meant to be a veteran, but they were exposed to this, to the service, and there were members of the military also present throughout the cemetery that we interacted with during the day, and it was just a very emotional and overwhelming day for, I think, everybody that was there, from one end, from physically, but also just the emotions to see. There were parts of that cemetery that we stand, it seemed as though the graves were endless. You saw to the horizon.
Now, Dennis, before I ask you the impact on it, because I have a strong feeling I know about yours, but one of the most moving things I ever saw on this program was when we did the Vietnam Wall a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And there's a shot of Dennis. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. There's a shot of Dennis wiping tears from his eyes at the wall. Now, can you tell us your impact on that?
Sure. And when we go to a regular cemetery, it's a very quiet place. But when you walk into Arlington, it's not only very quiet and reserved. Everybody that's in there is also respectful of the veterans that served their country before us. And even Section 60, which has the veterans of today being buried there. What my impression was of that day was over thousands, many thousands of people, and like Chip alluded to, is that they also showed such deep respect for our veterans that were buried there. We who are veterans, when we go there, we know the meaning of Arlington Cemetery. We know why we walk those grounds. And like you said also, it brings a tear to your eye. You have to catch yourself sometimes and not to be out bawling in front of everybody, but there's so many stories that are in that gravesite area that it's just so touching. And they're our brothers and sisters.
Very good. Chip, I'm going to come back to you now. Another question. You were down there taking part in the ceremony, and I assume there were some children there, or some
Quite
teenagers?
A few. Yes.
Okay.
Quite a few.
And wives and what have you. What was your take of them, and what was their impact as you could see it?
Well, as I said, many thousands, tens of thousands of the volunteers that were there. There were many families, children just old enough to walk, old enough to know.
Some still in strollers.
Some still in strollers, yes. And teenagers, entire family units were there as a family activity, and they were all showing respect and honor to the task at hand. The Wreaths Across America folk distribute trucks throughout the cemetery, and the trucks are loaded with the wreaths, and you just walk up to the truck and you put your arms out, and they place wreaths on your arms. Yes. And these families, as I said, these children that were, young children, had wreaths on their arms, and they were following their parents and following others, and going about the task of, again, placing the wreath at the grave. And we're not decorating. We weren't decorating graves. We were honoring and remembering the veterans.
A very important fact that we weren't decorating. We were honoring, and those are important words.
Part of the task at hand was that when we placed the wreath, we would say the name of the veteran that was emblazoned on the stone. So we would remember his name, he or her service, by saying aloud his name, that person's name, and placing the wreath and honoring them.
Very good.
One thing I want to add is that the children that were there, children sometimes can be rowdy. I didn't see one little one whining or anything, or saying.
I didn't see teenagers texting, answering their phones.
They weren't texting and they weren't answering cell phones.
That's an amazing thing.
That's the fact that the awe and respect was there even with the children. That's so very important.
It was, as Dennis alluded to when he first went to Arlington, and as many first-time visitors to Arlington, you just feel a spirit, just an awe come over you, and you realize where you are and what you're in the midst of.
Sure.
And that's important to hear that from that children even had that same impact.
Absolutely.
Al, what was your take on the whole day?
I think it was exceptional. Aside for the early startup, I think it was a very worthwhile day. The arrangements were very. Chip did a good. Were exceptional, and of course at Arlington. Again, inspiring, overwhelming, and again, we talked about the kids. What amazed me is the fact that here it is on a Saturday in the middle of December on a cold day, you had hordes of families and people visiting Arlington Cemetary. It's like you would kind of think that, especially with the Christmas season approaching, that'd be the last place you had such a crowd of people, but
they were at the mall.
They weren't at the mall. They were there honoring the veterans, honoring deceased service people, in their last final resting place, and that in itself speaks volumes, I think.
Just as we were leaving also, a few of the fellows had already made it back to the bus, but we were leaving the gates, and we encountered a young couple who was in their mid-20s, maybe late 20s. From Tennessee. They had just gotten engaged, and it was still a little giddy young couple over being engaged. And as I said, they traveled from Tennessee. Now, I can't recall my geography well enough to say whether Tennessee is closer to Arlington than Staten Island is, and they were going to get back on the train and go back to Tennessee. But they were just so happy and so satisfied and awe what they had participated in and what they were a part of that day. And a lovely couple, and I said they were mid to late 20s, and they were just so happy to have participated with it.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you the truth. From my perspective, watching the video here, and sorry that I wasn't there, but seeing such awe and respect for our veterans, for our military, and for our flag, by crowds and hordes of people like this, in this day and age, when kneeling has become a popular thing in some sectors of this country, okay, it made me proud to be an American. It made me proud to see all of these people there honoring our flag, honoring our veterans, and honoring our military. It has an impact on me as well in that respect. Paul, it's your turn now. Tell us how you took the whole day.
Well, it was a very, very exceptional day. I don't know how else to describe it. I visited the grave sites in Normandy, and same type of effect. It's just honor and respect, and that's what the day was about.
Very well said, Paul. And we note your emotions coming out.
Yes.
And it's the way we all felt.
Yeah.
It was something. But Ed, if I might point out, is that these men or women that are kneeling during the national anthem, we gave them that ability to do that because of our service in this country. It's a freedom of expression for them. Do we like it? Of course not, naturally, but that's their right.
Yeah, I often tell the story. I came back and became a police officer after finishing serving during Vietnam, okay? And one of the first things, I told the story probably too often, but one of the first things that I got assigned with the police department was to go to Central Park, okay, and they had a massive demonstration of the hippie groups that were burning our flag.
Yeah.
And, you know, being a veteran and being on a busload of veterans who saw many of their buddies get killed in Vietnam, and seeing this just infuriates me.
Of course.
Right? It infuriates me on the inside, okay? However, we had a job to do, and we had to do it the right way.
Sure.
So
Exactly.
you know, so
But we want to thank the Knights of Columbus for
Yes,
first giving us
absolutely,
this
exactly.
opportunity to go on the bus trip down to Arlington. On the bus, there were people other than veterans, and a lot of them were Knights of Columbus members and their wives or girlfriends.
it was very important.
That was a
Thank you. Yeah.
fantastic
Okay.
effort that they did to allow us to go down on the trip. And of course, we'd like to thank CTV for.
Okay. I want to take
filming.
a second out now just to thank our cameraman.
Yes.
I went to Andy Levinson. I says, Andy, we got a project. I says, we're going to go to Arlington Cemetary. And he said, oh, great, I'd love to go. Okay. Then I told him, but you got to meet the bus at 4:15. I moved the time up purposely.
And Ed, it wasn't, we might chuckle about it now, but he almost got arrested down
Yes.
there.
Oh, yeah.
We were all going through metal detectors and high security, and they had him sequestered off to the side, and we didn't know what was going to happen.
Expected to see him in bracelets.
Strip search.
And we were lucky that once he got his clearance,
Yeah, he was able to join us.
The thing a lot of people don't know, and I didn't know, was that in order to video anything in Arlington, you have to have an escort.
Yes. Right.
From the
The entire
security.
time.
We didn't know
Okay.
that either.
Okay, and Andy got segregated from the bus people,
Right.
and they were a couple of miles ahead of him.
But fortunately, we were talking via the telephone.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And Andy was actually waiting for his escort.
we didn't really abandon him, and if he did get arrested, we had bail money for him.
Not much.
We might have visited him, I'm
And
not
he
sure.
ended up with an escort who happened to be the perfect match for him.
Absolutely. A
Okay,
delightful
'cause
young lady.
she helped him, you know, through, you know, getting through lines again,
Sure.
because he was so far behind the group that he
And
finally
where we
caught
were,
up. And
sure.
but hence he gave us this beautiful video,
Absolutely.
and very professionally done.
Yep.
And so Andy, we take this opportunity to say thank you, because we really appreciate what you did. And he ended up walking the same 9 miles that you guys walked.
With a camera.
With the camera, which he was carrying 60, 80 pounds with him, you know, with the monopod that he carries with him, and
Walking backwards up a hill with no shoes.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the no shoes part, but
You promised you wouldn't tell that.
Oh, sorry.
you did a great job. I wanted to take this moment out to thank you because you really did it.
Outstanding job.
Paul, we're going to go back to you. We started to ask you your take on the day, and then we kind of interrupted you. But
Not really. I think it was a fabulous day. Exceeded the expectations, and we were able to honor those that have passed, veterans.
And you know what, Ed, in all fairness, we were going to do this last year.
right.
And last year was a horrendous snowstorm, and 95 was closed down in Baltimore and what have you. And Chip, our brother, said before the bus left, we said a prayer to the Blessed Mother. And we started out, and then the bus broke down. But you know, in fairness, I think it was the Blessed Mother that protected us, because we would never have gone. We would have gone 10 hours down there, you know, traveling back and forth, because we would never have gotten to Arlington anyway. So it was a good move on Blessed Mother's part for us.
Well, we're coming close to a wrap up. We got a whole hour in the show. Thank you guys, really. You kept it going. But before we get too far into the closing, Chip, I want you to please give us contact numbers where somebody can get in touch with the Knights of Columbus if they want to participate in the Knights. And I encourage everybody to whatever fraternal organizations that you in your life can be part of, take part of, because they do these wonderful things for society.
Sure, the communities. Yeah.
You know, instead of reading about all of the downer that goes on in life and all of the negative
Something
stuff,
positive.
take a piece of the positive part of life and take part in it. If you're a veteran, join the American Legion, join the VFW, join the VVA, and if you're not a veteran, and even if you are a veteran, join the Knights of Columbus, veterans, non-veterans, you know, take part in all of these things. Is there a number where they can reach the Knights of Columbus?
Well, the best way, as I said in the beginning of the show, there's some 11 councils on Staten Island, all throughout Staten Island. So rather than steering you to one or the other, if you're familiar with, there's a Knights of Columbus Hall, and it's near your home. Stop in, introduce yourself, and that would be a way to start. But other than that, I would just recommend them to go online, and the website is kofc.org. And on the website, it will lead you through. You'll place your zip code in, and they'll give you contact information. They'll put you in touch with the local councils, and then you can meet up with the council that way to volunteer. And then, as I said, the organization within the Knights that I'm representing, the Governor Dongan Assembly, it's the 4th degree. So once you join the Knights of Columbus, you become a Knight. You go through your degrees, and then if you choose to become a full Knight and take the 4th degree, then you would join the assembly, and that's how you would.
Once you reach 4th degree, you're donating a lot of time.
Right, and as I said, the password for the 4th degree is patriotism, and we concentrate on doing as many patriotic endeavors as possible, you know.
And also in the Knights of Columbus, some of them are situated in churches. As I say, for mine is Holy Family Church. Right. That has a new council named after Father Vincent Capodanno. So if you happen to be in your own parish, whatever parish you belong to, Manresa is with Holy Rosary Parish. So come inquire.
And I'm a member of Drumgoole Council.
Drumgoole Council.
Drumgoole is a beautiful hall in Richmond Town. That's where we left. The bus left from Drumgoole. They were gracious enough to allow us to use their parking lot.
When we got back.
They were there, safe and sound.
For the American Legion and the VFW, Paul, Al?
If you call 718-698-5269, I will refer you to whatever zip code you're in. I've got the contact information for all the posts here on Staten Island.
And Mary couldn't join us today, but
Mary
Mary's
Lamanna, or Mary McLoone, I keep forgetting that, I'm sorry.
glad my hands are tied down here, Ed. Mary, unfortunately, was not feeling well today, but she's a member of the American Legion, past county commander of the American Legion. So if you want to join the American Legion, just get in touch with any of us. Our telephone number is 718-698-1976.
Al, do we have any contact numbers for the VFW? Or,
Well, the VFW, Paul's, or my own phone number, 718-578-1242, or you can go online with vfw.org, and there's a little link that says "Find a Post" based on your
Put the zip code in.
With the zip code.
Beautiful. That's great. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking part in this last hour. It's been very moving for me, and I'm honored to have you sitting here with me. I truly am honored and have great respect for all of you. Okay, and for the people watching the program, take a piece out of life, a good piece out of life, and join and take part of, and assist in any way. It's there for you, and we
it's
need
very
you.
rewarding.
And very rewarding, and we need you. So please do that. And thank you for watching in honor of. It's been my pleasure to bring the program to you, as always. It's for veterans. It's for active members of the service, and it's for the general public. We want you to take part of what we do, because what we do is wonderful. Okay, and as a tribute to the show that we've just done, I'm going to ask that we close the show with the playing of taps in honor of all of those who gave their lives.
Today we're here to recognize Sergeant Henry Johnson, U.S. Army, 369th Infantry, Medal of Honor recipient, who finally received his just recognition for his outstanding heroism on the field of battle. And we're here to lay a wreath in commemoration of his service and life.
Amen.
Amen. Salute. Toot.
May his soul and all the souls that have faithfully departed to the mercy of God rest in peace.
Amen.
I hope so.
How many square miles is this? Right over here. That's good.
Okie dokie. Somebody tells me something, you're supposed to just, some guys just
okay.
K, or just
Yeah,
K,
yeah.
you know.
Okay, you're welcome. Enjoy the ceremony.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I am Staff Sergeant Calderon of the 3rd Infantry Regiment, United States Army. Guard of Honor, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.